But let's talk now to Harry Wallop, consumer journalist who's written for The Times, written for the Daily Mail. He's been all over the place. A fantastic, interesting experiment that he did. He became a Deliveroo driver. And you want to know what Deliveroo is like, and you want to know what it is like to work there. Harry's your man. Harry, very good morning to you. Welcome to the inaugural, first ever Morning Glory with Mike Graham.
Well, good to be. An honour to be here, Mike.
No, listen, I've read your piece with some interest because, you know, one of the things we hear about all the time is that Britain is changing. And one of the ways it's changing is that the high street is no longer full of restaurants that you can go and visit in your hometown, because it's full of restaurants that are delivering food to people via things like Deliveroo and Just Eat and Uber Eats and all of that. So I'm fascinated to know about your experience, and I read it with a great deal of interest. So first of all, tell us why you decided to do it.
Well, I decided to do it after the drivers of Deliveroo and all the other rival platforms went on strike.
Yes.
This was back in February, complaining about terrible conditions and pay. And I'd done this experiment 8 years ago when Deliveroo was just starting to become a household name.
Right.
So I'd followed their fortunes. And my takeaway from doing it 8 years ago was actually the pay wasn't bad. I earned back then £11.20, which is way an hour, £11.20 an hour,
right,
which is way above the minimum wage. So I was just slightly dubious about why they were making such a fuss. And I know they'd won various concessions thanks to sort of the unions fighting. So is it really that bad? So that's why I decided to join up.
Right. And is it the case, I mean, I know that many of us cover these stories from time to time, and I remember there was a whole swathe of Deliveroo drivers, I think, arrested in Brighton. It turned out loads of them were illegal migrants who were all working under various different names. Do they deduct tax from you? Is that one of the things that they do? Or do they employ you on what they would call, 0 hours contracts?
Well, it's in effect a version of 0 hours contract. So you are a completely free agent. I had to wait quite a few weeks to be cleared, for criminal records checks to be cleared, to proof of work. You know, even though I have a national insurance number, I've got a British passport. That still took some time.
Okay.
They seem to be moderately thorough, but because you are a free agent, you are and you're a contractor in effect. You are entitled actually to allow someone else to work on your account.
Right.
You then become responsible for whether they are cleared to work in the UK and they've got clear criminal records check. So I think we think that happens quite a bit.
So do you then have to? Do you then become an employer effectively, then, or a subcontractor, and you then have to pay them, or do they get to pay directly from Deliveroo? You
have to pay them, as I understand it. Obviously, I was only doing it for a week, so I didn't end up subcontracting out to anyone.
Right.
And of course, one of the things is I earned terrible amounts of money. I worked as hard as I could. I accepted all orders that came through onto my Riders app.
Right.
I cycled hard. I'm quite fit. I had an e-bike. I'd done it before, so I knew what was required. I'd listened to the training videos, and I worked out. I drove over 100 miles, did 23 hours or so, and I earned only £5.28 an hour.
Right.
Now, obviously, the minimum wage is £11.44, so dramatically less.
Yes.
And the issue is that Deliveroo say that you should earn at least the minimum wage, often far more, but that's while you are on a job, and you just don't get enough jobs.
Yeah.
So you have to be waiting.
But I mean, one of the things that I find fascinating about this whole new business that we've got is that, you know, I drive around in London a lot. You know, you're constantly sort of being overtaken by moped drivers, by Deliveroo guys on push bikes or electric bikes, as you say. And I presume you have to supply that yourself. But one of the things that I saw, which I thought was fascinating, was one evening shift that you say you spent delivering all sorts of food to city law firms, you know, so quite high-end businesses who are ordering incredible volumes of food, right? So tell us what they're ordering and why is that suddenly that's such a big thing?
Well, what we know is happening is that all these Uber Eats and Deliveroo and Just Eat, they all have these corporate accounts.
Yeah.
You're a big swanky city bank or law firm. You now, instead of actually, paying for having a proper canteen, as a perk in return for staying late working, you get like 30 quid a day.
Right.
Spend on one of these delivery platforms.
Okay.
And if you then go and deliver, it's the sheer volume. I delivered to Bank of America right in the heart of the city, and there's like signs saying, food delivery area. And I got kind of into a holding pen with like 7 or 8 of us all handing over our meals to all the secretaries and the juniors who come down to pick it up for their boss. And it's all kind of swanky burgers, 15 quid burgers, a lot of dishoom, kind of market, Indian takeaway, hugely popular. And yeah, I mean, outside McKinsey, huge consultancy firm. In fact, the first time I delivered there, the receptionist kind of looked a bit cross at me and just pointed me down the road. And there enough, there was a trolley. And there was like 3 or 4 other drivers. We were all dropping off on the trolley. It was empty when I dropped off. In the time it took me to go to my bike on the other side of the road and unlock my padlock and everything, I could see more and more people arriving, and it was full. And then this lackey from McKinsey came and basically took the trolley away. And I said to her, "Is this normal? Is there like an event going on?" She said, "No, this is completely normal. Standard night. And I'll come back in 10 minutes and pick up another trolley's worth."
Amazing. So, I mean, you would think that you would be able to make that money that you thought you were going to make if it's that busy. But so maybe there's a kind of is there a tipping point where you get to the point where, you know, you've maybe done too many jobs?
Well, I spent a lot of the week cycling around huge swathes of London, slightly worried, am I doing something wrong? Why am I not earning enough? I did speak to other riders. And to try and, and I asked how much they were doing and what are your earnings like. And I was at the bottom end, but I wasn't, but not at the very lowest end. People were earning less than me. Most people were earning more. And it turns out that a lot of the drivers, they play the system. I mean, as they're entitled to do. They turn down a lot of jobs. When you get an order, it says, this is the order, it's worth £3.42. And you can choose to accept it or not because you're a free agent, you're a contractor. And most of the experienced riders go, "No, I'm not doing that. I'll turn it down." And they wait for another one. And crucially, because of these court cases that Deliveroo have, been forced to prove that they're not an employer and therefore they don't have to pay anything like, paid holiday or anything like that, you are genuinely free. So a lot of the riders end up working, which I had no idea. They work for Deliveroo and Just Eat and Uber Eats all at the same time. The reason why you see them all zooming around, the streets really fast, they're fast because, you need to save time. You've got to get as much, got to get as many orders in as possible. And the other thing is they're hunched over their phones, just seeing which one shall I accept. Shall I accept a Just Eat order or an Uber Eats order or a Deliveroo order? Which one's going to pay me more in the next kind of 15-minute window? So they're completely ruthless about how to make a modest, living. I mean, I didn't make a modest living from this. I was, it was less than half the minimum wage. But if you want to earn more than the minimum wage, that's how you do it.
It's interesting because a lot of people, we're out of time, unfortunately, but a lot of people that were answering your tweets were saying, "Oh yeah, I've got a friend who does it part-time in the evening, seems to work quite well. They can maybe do better." But let me ask you one final question, Harry. Did anyone give you a big tip so that made you smile? Did anything actually happen that made it look like a good thing?
Well, some people are very nice. The customers were mostly polite. I did get 1 or 2 tips, and this sounds like an awful cliche, but it is true. The people who tip are the people who are living on the council estates, who are very polite. And you think, well, the British manners were not completely, you think it's a completely awful experience. No, it was, there was some little limited human interaction going on.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, fascinating stuff. Great read as well. Thank you very much indeed, Harry Wallop.